Good afternoon, everyone. It's 5 p.m. and I'm now calling the July 13th, 2026 public hearing of the board to order. Our Director of Financial Services, Matthew Young, is scheduled to deliver a budget report.
All right. Good evening, Board President Thomas, directors of the board, and Deputy Superintendent Dr. Raymond. Excited to be here today to present the 26-27 budget for our public hearing. So enrollment is the primary driver of our funding, making enrollment projections the natural place to begin our review of the budget and budget process for 2027. The projected enrollment shown here includes the designation AAFTE, which is Annual Average Full-Time Equivalent Enrollment. Annual average FTE enrollment is how the state views enrollment and how it is used in the funding model to calculate the state allocation to the district. Using AAFTE for our enrollment projections allows the district to more accurately project our revenues for budget development. The district takes a strategic and data-driven approach when projecting our enrollment. When modeling our forecast, takes into account several major factors, including cohort survival rates, which is the trend of, say, second graders moving into third grade into fourth, etc. Student transition patterns, where they move throughout the district, out of district altogether and coming in from other districts, as well as county birth rate trends and housing and construction activity within the district. Using accurate and conservative assumptions is critical to maintaining long-term financial stability. Oops. Sorry. After locking in our enrollment projections, after going through a review process with various stakeholders, the finance team determines the estimated revenues driven by that enrollment, which is then built into the budget. State funding, as you can see here, is our largest revenue source and makes up approximately 76% of the total funding. This includes our basic education allocation, special education, support programs such as Learning Assistant Program or LAP, and our MLL and transitional bilingual programs. Federal revenues support targeted student needs, including our major title programs such as Title I for disadvantaged, Title II for effective instruction, Title III for MLL supports, and Title IV for student support. The district also takes advantage of competitive grants that are accessible through the Department of War education activity, which is linked to our military connection with JBLM and our many military and federally connected students and families. Impact Aid, which is a significant component of the district's federal revenue at over $16 million, approaching nearly half of the total federal funding received each year by the district. So please watch out for those surveys in October. The remaining revenue comes from our local levy, also known as our Educational Programs and Operations Levy, or commonly the EP&O levy. Interest earnings that we earn from investing our fund balance through the county, and as well as services provided to other districts. The combination of these revenue sources form our total revenue forecast for the upcoming fiscal year. With revenue projections in place, we must also project what the financial condition of our current fiscal year by estimating our ending fund balance. In this slide, you'll see that we have forecasted to end the 25-26 fiscal year with approximately $21.6 million. And as you also see on the slide, our estimated ending fund balance then becomes the beginning fund balance for our budget development for 26-27. At the April 27th board meeting, there was a consensus on targeting a 6% ending fund balance, with board policy requiring a minimum of 5%. The projected beginning fund balance, along with projected revenues, allows us to determine the level of expenditure capacity we must meet to responsibly adhere to the guidance provided from the board. In the next 3 slides, we'll separate out our expenditure projections in a variety of ways to align with how OSPI reports school budgets at the state level. On this first slide, we'll take a look at expenditures as defined by the state object code. This slide shows that the first 3 lines are for salaries and employee benefits, and they add up to approximately 83% of the total budget. This aligns with our expectations for the budget dedicated to staffing costs. Historically, our staffing budget is between 80 and 85% of the total budget. The remaining object categories make up much of what is commonly referred to as MSOC budget, or materials, supplies, and operating costs. And you see supplies and materials, purchased services, travel, and finally capital. In total, our budgeted expenditures are expected to be $292.7 million. Next, we'll break down the expenditures by state activity. Instruction and instructional support make up approximately 79% of the total expenditures. Administration, listed at the top, is the state's technical definition of administration, which includes the board of directors, the superintendent's office, the business office, human resources, and public relations. We know that we have other central administration costs in the budget sprinkled throughout the other activity categories, including in teaching and learning, career and technical education, student services, assessment, technology, student nutrition, transportation, and maintenance. These additional administration costs supporting the educational programs and other operational departments brings the total cost of administration to approximately 7% of the overall budget. Finally, we'll break down the expenditures by program. No surprise to see, as expected, and shown on the first line, that regular instruction is the largest percentage of our spending. This is followed by a robust special education program at approximately $53.5 million. Also, want to bring attention to the more than $20 million in compensatory education in the budget, which are those targeted programs for students with greater needs, such as targeted intervention supports, MLL, and other programs of support to ensure each student is provided an impactful education experience. The other very substantial program is district-wide support at nearly 14.5% of the overall budgeted expenditures. This program includes major district costs like utilities and insurance, which alone are approximately $5.2 and $6.2 million each, respectively. Now we take a look at a summarized version of the various components of the budget. We are projecting to start the year at $21.6 million in fund balance. Our revenues are estimated at $286 million, which provides the district with $308 million in total available resources. Now reducing our total resources by the projected expenditures of $292 million, we're left with a forecasted ending fund balance of $15.6 million. This is approximately 5.6% of budgeted revenues. With the board targeting an ending fund balance of 6%, the district will need to continuously monitor revenues and expenditures and continue working toward that goal by identifying the need for additional reductions in the future to maintain financial stability. The charts shown in this slide represent a few of the areas where funding from the state is simply falling short, creating a funding gap. This is not unique to Clover Park and is an issue for nearly every school district in Washington. The district partners with other districts as well as education-facing agencies that continue to lobby the state for more adequate funding to support schools and keep them financially sound. The chart on the left shows the level of funding for the district's MSOCs, again, materials, supplies, and operating costs, versus the actual cost of the district and the deficit between them for each year since 2020. As previously mentioned, our MSOC budget includes our utility costs and costs of the district's insurance coverage, for which expenditure growth has greatly outpaced the revenue growth from the state. These types of expenditures the district has little control over, and they remain underfunded. As you can see, with current projections for 25-26 included, the amount underfunded since 2020 for MSOC is approaching $40 million. Moving to the next graph, we see another rising cost of the district is our special education programs. Again, this is an area where the district has little ability to control rising costs, as the services required through student IEPs must legally be met and those services provided to ensure an appropriate education is available to every student, whether the funding matches the need or not. Like MSOC, the special education funding gap continues to grow since 2020. The district has covered nearly $50 million to support this program above and beyond the funding received. Here we look at the district's fund balance trend over the last 10 years. In 2017, 2018, we ended the year at just under 20 million. Then the fund balance climbs over the years, which is not a typical trend for school districts. The increases were primarily due to our conservative budgeting during the pandemic and the infusion of federal ESSER dollars. Those dollars expired at the end of 2024, which you can see. Since then, we are returning to a normal district level fund balance. We've taken a proactive and disciplined approach to building next year's budget, carefully planning, closely monitoring legislative and economic factors such as inflation, and continue to make responsible adjustments where needed. The superintendent's forecasting team met frequently throughout the year, including submitting an expenditure reduction resolution in March and a second in May. We will maintain our focus on long-term financial stability to support student success. To wrap up our review of the general fund budget for 26-27, we'll look at the longer-reaching four-year estimated budget. The four-year budget makes many assumptions, as there are a lot of unknown factors when forecasting that far ahead. What will legislation look like in those years? How will the funding model change? What will happen with federal funding? And how will inflation change in that period? With all of these factors in place, the district finance team uses conservative estimates for the enrollment, as well as revenues and expenditures for the out years. Each of the out years are projected to maintain the minimum fund balance required by board policy of 5% of revenues. This assumption is done knowing that continual monitoring and the need for additional reductions in spending will need to take place to retain the fund balance at this level. The general fund is the district's operating fund, so we spend a lot of time going through it in detail. Now we'll take a look at a high level at our other funds which have specialized functions. First, we look at Capital Projects Fund. This fund is dedicated for new and remodel construction and major repairs on the district's buildings and properties. While this is an active fund with several smaller ongoing projects, we don't have any major new construction planned next year. We still build in significant capacity into this budget for expenditure in case of unanticipated projects that arise. This allows the district to move into action without the need to submit a budget extension with the state to increase the existing expenditure budget. Next, we'll look at our debt service fund. This fund is used to pay off our voter-approved bond debt principal and interest. The revenues primarily consist of property tax revenue, and the expenditures consist of the principal and interest payments made each June and December. Moving to ASB, this is the student-run budget, and it remains relatively stable year over year and is built to show revenues and expenditures that are generally higher than expected. This ensures healthy capacity is built in to allow for additional fundraising and spending for newly formed clubs or clubs that become more active in different years due to the students that are interested in them. Finally, we have Transportation Vehicle Fund. This fund is used for the purchase of major repair on the district's fleet of yellow school buses. We are expecting the purchase of new buses next year to keep up our depreciation cycle and provide for continued future funding. We also build capacity to cover buses that are expected to be delivered this year, but may push into the next fiscal year. And additional capacity for unknowns, such as the need for a purchase of a replacement bus in the case of an accident or loss. Now we'll look at the extended 4-year budget for each of the funds we just reviewed, starting with capital projects. Expenditure capacity is built into each of the out years to allow spending down of the funds on potential projects for the future. The debt service fund 4-year projection shows the expected revenues through property taxes and interest earnings, as well as the expenditures for the annual principal and interest payments made in December and June each year on the district's outstanding bonds. ASB shows a relatively flat projection over the 4 years. This is a typical projection for ASB in the out years to see slightly declining fund balance to ensure that as money is raised, it is also being spent on the students who fundraised it and should benefit from the funds during their time at the school. Lastly, the transportation vehicle projection represents our various replacements over the next several years, along with capacity. The continued purchase of buses as others fall off the depreciation schedule will allow a continued revenue stream to maintain a healthy bus fleet into the future. And that's my presentation for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Young, for your report. This hearing is for the public to provide comment. The board will not be commenting or responding to any remarks. We'll now hear public comment for the budget hearing. If you want to give public comment related to the budget hearing, you may fill out a comment card or enter your full name in the chat box. You will be given 3 minutes for public comment. If you desire a response to your comment, please enter your address or email address in the chat or send it in a separate email to the superintendent's office. We will call on the, I know you still have to. We will call on the community for public comment in the order received, alternating between comment cards and names in the chat box. If the time for public comment expires, you may send your written comment to the superintendent's office, or they will be forwarded to the board of directors for their review. Do we have any public comment? Anybody online wish to make public comment at this time regarding the budget? With that, we're now at the end of our public budget hearing. This meeting is adjourned at 5:19. Thank you.